I every time talk about Aditya Dhar, sir, I get goosebumps and I'm very emotional. I have seen magic happening in front of my eyes. Mr. Dhar always wanted to do something which is a global cinema. He doesn't like to settle down for less. He doesn't want to settle for anything mediocre. If somebody in your family has faced something in Pahalgam attack, in Pulwama or Uri, would you have that kind of thought process still left that no, we are brothers, so what, we are in different countries? It doesn't happen like that.
I think for the last year and a half, there's only been one Hindi film that has literally been dominating headlines. It's been dominating cinema screens. And my goodness, it's literally laughed its way all the way to the bank. And I think it's really a great privilege because when we talk about UK exclusives, we've had really great artists that have joined us. But today, who we have is a very fine actor who has left such a presence with his eyes and the way he commands his presence on screen. That is, of course, Aditya Uppal, who you saw in Dhurandhar the Revenge. So thank you so much, Aditya, for joining us. And thank you for choosing us as your first UK exclusive interview. This is such a big opportunity for us. Thank you.
First, thanks to Filme Shilmy, and then thanks to Anuj, and thank you so much for those kind words. Really means a lot, man.
Thank you. All right. So, Aditya, Unknown Men, okay, has been the undercurrent theme of Dhurandhar for a while. And I feel this is very peak detailing by Aditya Dhar, quite literally here, because I feel what the film has done, it's picked up actors, it's picked up talents across every kind of film slate in terms of the behind the scenes stuff, the technical aspects, the acting aspects, music aspects, and it's made them into a star. It's made them into a known name. That unknown name becomes a known name, right? And I feel like for you, in a way, this film has kind of in a way done that for you because this you've I in fact I read somewhere that this has been 16 years which you've been waiting to do a role like this. Um, so as bhari as my introduction to this question is, I'm sure for you this weight must have been equally very heavy and very tardy as well, right?
Yeah, I think you've kind of very nicely articulated the weight that I had to go through. Um, it looks very easy to say now that what a wonderful journey and what a beautiful fruit, but obviously it was taxing in its own way. As actors, we're always actors. And I don't want to be philosophically correct here, but when I say as an actor, you always have a craft and a bunch of audience with you in the school, in your college, as you grow up, in your workplace, and then suddenly one day you have a bigger, larger audience that's like a destiny, that's like a good luck or a blessing that God gives you through the medium of cinema. So, as a student and a learner of cinema, this couldn't have been any better, worth a wait as we speak. Uh, Coming directly from the house of B62 Productions and Aditya Dhar, sir, I think I'm the blessed child. I take it with all the love, dignity, and I I can probably set the tone for this interview by saying this that this is one of the most beautiful way of pampering yourself, and probably the revenge has given the self respect back to an actor.
That is so beautiful, Aditya. Before we get into the Dhurandhar, because I would really like to know about your journey, about, you leading here. Because see, now everyone knows you as ASP Omar, right? Everyone recognizes you as in that role, that amazing post-credit scene that everyone was literally nail-bitingly waiting for.
Yes, yes.
Eventually came after like so many
So many credits.
link up. But there's so much more to that. Like, I feel like even when I look at your eyes, I feel like there's a sense of happiness, excitement, and hope and ambition. But at the same time, there is a great deal of experience that you've gone through in life to really
Yeah.
get here. Let's talk about that. Let's go through that. What would you say was the beginning point of you in terms of wanting to become an actor? And how has the journey, some of the setbacks you've had, has it disappointed you? Has there been times when you felt like, why am I even here? Can't we just not wrap this up and just do something else?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Uh, I would, very nicely, if I have to put it in two words, I would say the journey has been a roller coaster, Anuj. But what a disruption at the end. that uh, rather not the end, probably the start. That what a disruption at the start, that you open your wings with something as big as Dhurandhar, the franchise which has become a global name. As we speak today, I've heard the news that it's releasing in Japan on 10th of
Yeah.
July, and that's one of the biggest, probably lead to a story where people are not just reaching the Indian cinema, but they're reaching Indian cinema in a global way, and they're trying to reach out to knock out to the new doors. Journey for me has been obviously roller coaster, because you want to make it happen in Bollywood. It's not easy for newcomers. And I want to be very, very honest here. It's not at all easy for newcomers, but one doesn't stop dreaming. That's the only thing, and the hope is the only thing that keeps you going. I mean, think about you and me living a life without a hope.
Hmm.
uh, there's nothing to look up to. So when you have hope in hand, and you have dreams in your head that it's going to happen. But I'll give a lot of this to destiny as well, because to ha- for an actor to happen be in the vicious circle of a film, there are so many external factors that are important to make it happen. And I quickly take you through that, because imagine you have to look in a certain way. You are available at a certain point of time. The casting director remembers you at that point of time, and he doesn't forget you. You crack the audition, the director likes you, you're available on the respective dates, and all of that circle, when it all clubs together, an actor gets a job. And all of this happening isn't that easy for any of us. I mean, not just for Omar Haider, for any of the characters. So imagine so much of threats are already connected, which are internal threats. And then imagine an outsider coming and making it happen. It's a very big thing. Energies do go waste sometimes. You keep giving auditions and you have a habit of listening to no. So a no becomes a very, very important friend to an actor, because the moment you give, you either listen yourself as a not fit, or a not compatible, or not this time, or maybe next time. So these words are very, very fancy, lovable words. But one day the fatigue can happen to any actor, and one thinks that, yeah, this is it for me. So the best thing is you keep yourself busy, occupied, you run the show for yourself, and one day when the life gives you opportunity, you hit hard, and then that's a full run.
Beautiful. Well, that is so, so wonderful. Now, again, coming back to Dhurandhar, again, what I read up was because I believe you had some roles, like small roles, I believe, in films like Break Ke Baad, right? Break Ke Baad was one.
Yeah, yeah, very, very small. Yeah, a cameo. I want to see how films happen.
Yeah, do you know what? I feel like after this interview and after like we've seen you in that film, I think a lot of people are gonna go back and watch that and are gonna like hunt you down now in that.
I
But
wasn't there.
it was the unknown man. Peak
Yeah.
dirty thing. No, but it's really interesting because I remember initially, right, you actually were hesitant, right? Or you said no for this role, right? Initially,
Yeah,
we read
yeah,
something along those lines. But do you think it's because, like how you mentioned, and based on what the sort of journey that you've had, do you think it's because that sense of disappointment and such fatigue sometimes that that often clouds your judgment into actually hearing an opportunity coming in front of you because what you've wanted has never happened, but actually सामने से जो आ रहा है वो actually आपकी expectations से भी बढ़कर हो सकता है कभी कभी.
yeah.
So do you feel like that's what was the reason why you initially said no, was because you were just tired, of not getting the.
Certainly, yes.
Yeah.
Certainly, yes, Anuj. One gets tired. I mean, fatigue is a part of any job. I mean, you're doing it, you're doing it, you're doing it, and then suddenly one day you feel that, should I give it a chance, or should I just be what I'm doing? And then, you know, how do I say, the journey of a human being also evolves. No, your maturity, your way of thinking, your way of looking at things also change with time. And with me, I was also evolving. When I started doing acting in theater and auditioning, I was a young guy doing journalism and mass communication. You get married, now I have kids, so that's a huge thing that you have to think of. When you're single, you can take chances, risk, accept no's, be a little vulnerable, fragile with the kind of job that you are in. But as you grow, you got to look at a lot of aspects of, and so this is not easy. Imagine you and me are right now working, we're doing our jobs, right? And the world can be critique to our job. um, Unlike any accountant or a CA sitting in their own chair doing their job, they would just have an easy escape to it. But you and me can be judged and pointed any point of time and being spoken of. So that's the kind of role we, as an artist, we choose for ourselves, and we put ourselves in that kind of a spot. So So yeah, that happens. But like I said, I mean, there is way of looking at things. The story can sometimes help people who are in the middle of it and about to achieve it. But the I would say look at the end and the fruit. If it is Durandar, then it's worth the wait. If it is something else that comes your way that makes your day happy, sunshine, that's your day. Just keep going. I mean, that's the funda, man. Nazar
Yeah,
and sabr.
true. Yeah,
Yeah,
very true.
nazar
Oh,
and sabr is the key.
to be honest, Hosla Indan Badla has become the motto of my life at this point.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
I,
my son keeps talking about it. Every morning he will get up and come and see me, and then he'll say, "Hosla, indhan, badla."
oh, nice. I feel like that needs to be on like a t-shirt or something. Like I really,
There are a lot of merchandise. This merchandise available here.
yeah, I know. I've been seeing it. I'm like, this is so cool. All right, so let's get into Omar, right? Now, he's a very fascinating character for me because technically speaking, he's actually not the bad guy, right?
Yeah,
He's actually not the bad guy. In fact, from a from a neutral, normal perspective,
he's the only good guy.
he's actually the only good guy because he is trying to safeguard and clear the streets of his country from
Yeah,
gangsters, from from the terrorists, from the guns that's out there, right? So technically he's not wrong, but obviously from the perspective that we're seeing it, obviously from just Kirat Singh Rangi's perspective, he is
yeah,
a threat at the same time. Now,
correct.
this is interesting, Aditya, because I feel like when you're playing this character, you're obviously playing it from that lens, right? You're playing it from Omar's lens. But was there ever that side of you where the perspective of just Kirat Singh Rangi or the from the raw perspective in terms of the Indian intelligence perspective, did that thought ever creep in to your mind when playing this character?
Partially, partially, I would say yes. But you very nicely put it, Anuj, that this entire situation has been a little tough as a person, as a character, because he is still there and he's promoted today as a DIG. And so it's very important that you give that due respect to the gentleman who that you're playing, and he's doing his job. He's a very articulate man, and at the same time, he's kind of just constantly looking at his target. His job is to make sure that I get the right man. And while you get the right man in that process, the way the third party looks at you, and I mean our audiences here, obviously, uh, there's a lot of hatred to the character. There's a lot of pinpointing to the character. I wish you were not there. I wish you were not, you didn't join this game of Dhurandhar. So, but that's probably the writing, how beautifully the writing is done as a writer, that the character can leave that kind of impact in people's mind.
Yeah.
So, even if Anuj, you look at the nuances of all the characters for a minute that Aditya sir have written, they're remarkably very well established in their own, ways. Either they're from this side of the fence or the other side of the fence, but they're beautifully written. And I think everything lies in the writing of it. So audience just flows by that kind of a writing. So a lot of people sometimes feel that it's the actors thing that is making that kind of an impact, or some people think it's the cinematography. But eventually, I feel it's script. It's the writing that draws the attention, and it plays your psychology in a way that you start thinking in a certain way. So yeah, I think it happens from both sides.
I'll come
Yeah.
back to the character in a bit,
Yeah.
but I've got to talk about, I think for me, the aesthetics, right, of the film, the color palette, all these technical aspects, because like I said, I think the devil's in the detail here. And I think Aditya is really, really beautifully thought out. I felt like there was a lot of greens and browns that really predominantly dominated the screen.
Yeah.
To give it that very kind of governmental undercover feel, and also
Correct.
the fact that it was set in Lyari, so green is obviously an obvious choice
Yeah.
that was used there. And I feel like even the camera shots, the background music, see, those are all that we see post-production. That's like the
Yeah.
final product that we see on celluloid. But when you're shooting for it, that there must be some, it must be more mechanical, but yet also you need those aspects to really help enrich and create that atmosphere. So what was it like working with the the aesthetics that was in the film? From a pre-production, when you were on set rather than necessarily post-production, because what we're critiquing and what we're seeing is the final product. You're
Yeah.
working on set, right? So
Yeah.
what's it like to work around the peak detailing and the aesthetics and the technical aspects as well?
Um, so some part of the question can be answered, and some part of this question is beyond my paycheck to answer because that really belongs to the artistry of the DOP and the art director. And so I'll not like to take that route because I'll not be able to do justice to that question that way. But I pretty much understand the gist of what you're saying. His style of working is so raw. Uh, and Anuj, I could see it in sets while we were working that he believes in realism, not of realism of books, but realism of what genuinely things look like. Even if I had not to fire a gunshot, I had to go through a weapon training, proper weapon training, so that an officer would hold a gun in a certain way. Even if you see the Lyari built in Bangkok or Thailand in a certain way, um, the every small detailing is well taken care of. The
Hmm.
phone booths, the small gullies, as we say, and every small corner is well taken care of. You even look at the costumes, and the detailing on the hair and makeup is absolutely stunning. You would have not seen something like this in past, where the action happens like this. I saw something called the project Wolf Hunting, something on Prime,
Hmm.
a Korean drama, and that looks so real to me. And I was while watching, I thought Dhurandhar has probably overdone itself over it. Not because I'm part of the film or the project, but also because as a viewer, I'm able to see something in Indian cinema that has never been seen before.
Hmm.
You may call it gore, you may call it violence, but they are also real time things as one would expect it to be. So what we sometimes forget is that people see films in a certain prism of things or certain lenses, but they don't realize that the audience has also grown and matured.
Hmm.
So that the tag of adult is no more a tag of adult for all of us today. um, Maybe we want to see that kind of content, and we've grown up to see that kind of content, or we are accessible to that kind of a content now.
Yeah.
So since international cinema is privy to my culture now, I don't mind watching such kind of things. So coming back to the question that you say, the standing there and watching his peak detailing and the track of his work, yes, it is realism, and it's realism to the next level where things are not overdone but are absolutely tried. You remember that scene where in the part one they enter the plane in the Kandahar and they're killing
Yeah.
somebody.
Yes. 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 Yes.
That killing, and when Rahman is thrashing his father Babu Dakat,
Hmm.
and when the Arshad Papu scene happens of that football sequence,
Huh.
such things not just bring violence, they also bring the kind of the growth that the cinema is taking. So one way of looking at this kind of cinema is that you should be inspired that you reach a international standard. There are films which are made of international caliber and they're announced on the global forums. Dhurandhar will be one of them. And
Yeah.
that's what his objective was. Mr. Dhar always wanted to do something which is a global cinema. He doesn't like to settle down for less. He doesn't want to settle for anything mediocre. And it is his perfection that we all are looking beautiful.
Oh.
It is his perfection. There is no other answer. I mean, who doesn't want to take credit? We actors anyway live in vanity, but it's I know it's his game. It's his cinema.
But you know what? Absolutely. It really is his vision. And I think he executed it quite literally here,
Yeah.
also to the T. He really did. And I think, honestly, I think I'm waiting for the day where I get to actually have a proper sit down conversation to dissect everything with
Oh
Aditya. I think
yes.
so many of us are waiting for that. So let's hope कि वो दिन जल्दी आए. But,
Jaldi.
I think also the fact that, because you were in the first part as well, right?
Yes.
But I felt like your first part was kind of like it was a glimpse of what the part will unfold in the
Yeah,
second.
the Omar's character introduced in first
Yes,
part, and
exactly.
they've kept it so subtle that even if you don't know me and if you're watching the movie, you might just feel that I didn't notice that guy. And the kind of build up that happens post SP, I think it's bang on. I mean, look at the arc of the character. Could
Hmm.
I be any blessed in a way to do a character which has a beautiful step by step arc of reaching to the pinnacle of his own threshold where he's just breaking down on things. So from the introduction of speaking nothing and observing to reaching out to the end and hitting Hamza to the core, and then the last scene, the end credit scene. I mean, that's a full journey of the character.
It's beautiful. It's honestly so well done. Where essentially you take the reins from Aslam right? You literally
Yeah,
take the reins from us, and that's what the
absolutely.
character does, right? He is the one. Again, I think like Hosla Indan Badla is quite interestingly weaved into the film because I think that also then sets the premise for each character arc
Yeah,
that we
yeah,
see from the first one. So it almost becomes like the slogan of the film essentially, and
yes,
that's what I find very fascinating. But what I also like about the movie is that it's very brooding. There's a very brooding sense even in this. So the first part I would say was a bit more commercial and masala
yeah, yeah,
comparative to the second one, which is perhaps why people have also said that they prefer the first one because it had that sense of comfort for when you watch, like you've got the item song, you've got like
yeah,
a love escapist romantic number, whereas with the second one it's about loss, it's about grief, it's about losing your identity, distance. Hence why if we see the songs also like Jaye Sajna, even a song like Hum Pyar Karne Wale from Dil, right? The way that's even customized as a way about losing your identity and also finding that sense of fight and revolution within you. There's a
yeah,
little more suppressed, subdued anger, I think, in the revenge. Aditya, because there was that tone that was set, and like I said, it was brooding. How does that then the writing, the tone of the film, then also then have an impact on you as an actor? What was the right sur that you had to really hold on to? I think to make sure that it comes across as consistent, but then
yeah,
also compelling at the same time.
yeah. Very interesting question, and that's more than a question. That's an observation, Anuj. Lot many have not asked because a film buff can ask such kind of question. The film is not shot in two parts. So film is shot in one go.
Yeah.
It is released in two parts. So never ever we could lose the sur, as we say, the tone of the characters. But yes, we've shot for like good almost 2 years, 1.5 years. We've shot in that duration. So every time you reach the set, you're not privy to the script. I have only got my part, and so does other actors. We've never got to read the full script at once. So what brings is a element of curiosity, and as a character building, there is a miss sometimes because you don't know where am I coming from and where am I going to. So that was a gray area that one I had to operate in. That entire area was very gray, but gracious of him to kind of always give that brief of what is expected. I've been not a very trained actor and not done too much exposed to cinema. You may call it more of an intuitive actor and an actor by practice. Uh, he's held my hand to the character very, very, very importantly, and in a way that I don't lose it. And I'm sure you would have done it with the other actors also, because what happens is when you're shooting a cinema of 8 hours, it's an 8 hour thing, almost 8 hour thing, final role. There's a lot that goes behind it. There are certain scenes that have been chucked out. There are certain elements that we didn't do. There are certain things that we missed. But that's all fine because the story needs to look, the product needs to come as a good product. So, talking about that character building and the suit that you're talking about, Anuj, that is very important because you got to keep remembering in your head that, where is my journey right now? And
Hmm.
I shot part two first and part one later.
Oh,
So
right.
if you see that the switch of an actor was little too higher, because I kind of don't know how to articulate this answer to you, but what I'm trying to say is that I had to be with the director constantly to make sure that today's schedule is
Hmm.
well managed.
Right.
Because I am doing two and then I'm doing part one, then I'm doing again part two, and then I'm doing again part one. So that scene's breaking happening because there's so many actors, their availability, their timings, and everybody's scared. It's a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah, true.
So as an actor, you got to be smart, but at the same time, the listening really helps you because he believes in giving you a very good brief. All that an actor needs to do is to listen to his director, and then rock and roll, man.
Yeah. No, how beautifully that you've said that because I think it's unbelievable, right? Like and again I can imagine for you because you've mentioned as well that you've grown up watching Sanjay Dutt films on the VHS,
Oh, I
right?
love him.
And honestly quite interesting you mentioned VHS because that's exactly how B62 Studios' logo unravels, right?
Yes, Yes.
And I think also what great privilege though you get to perform with him, but then also on Tama Tama Loge in the background.
That's too the favorite song. My childhood favorite song.
Like, it was such a great scene. And Aslam actually was a very interesting character because I mean, again, he was a threat to Hamza, right? And he was also a bit of a rogue. He was a rogue police officer, right? Like he was quite corrupt. I felt like your character was definitely a lot more righteous and a lot
Yeah.
more wafadar in that sense. Whereas I feel like Aslam he was like a Robin Hood type of a character, right?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
kind of someone who just, so I think that synergy, right? Because I mean, even in the space that you had with Sanjay sir, there's so many different. There's that whole ideology conflict that you have with him because you're someone who's really true to the nation. You're true to your Nokri. You're true to
Yeah.
your duty. Whereas he is like, no, just kill him off. He's just, he's being a nuisance in my way.
Yeah. That's a game of chess for him. Yes.
So how was I don't want to. I would love to know, obviously, about the synergy that you had with Sanjay Dutt, but I think because you've spoken about that so vastly, I would love to understand the more cerebral sort of synergy that you had with him, especially when it comes to the character positionings, because I would love to understand how that then transpired into the camaraderie that one shares.
If you really ask me, I play a little smarter here.
Yeah.
I'm a very big fan of him, and that's an understatement. And a disclaimer goes before I answer that question is that I'm in awe of him. When you look at the man like him, I love Ranveer Bhai, I love Madhavan sir, Arjun Bhai, everybody. They're all amazing actors. We all look up to them for work. But with Sanjay Sarna, the level of dignity and that positioning is different. He's like a father figure. And I chose not to speak a lot with him. I chose that way. I'll tell you why. Because my way, that's probably my way of looking at things. That I wanted to keep it a boss relationship intact with him.
Ah,
And so what happens is that while you talk a lot with the character, your confidence level can sometimes boost up as an actor, and you get that kind of a comfort zone. Whereas my character never wanted to get into that kind of a comfort zone with him. So whatever little conversation we had were very little, small, lovely, funny, and both of us have kind of in our heads we know that not too much of chilling can be good for us. I'm not circuit of Munabai.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know what I mean here?
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, so I am not that, but I'm also the same guy, spending same time, but with the dignity of that he's my officer. So idea was to talk less and maintain that dignity because that will obviously reflect on screen. One can be a great actor, but one cannot cheat every time, and small little eyebrows and your eyes cannot be. I mean, for me, it's a tough thing. I'm sure actors can pull it off, but I always wanted to keep that cheat code because it will help me perform better and maintain that dignity. So even if you see that the scene where me and Sanjay sir are interacting, we are kind of talking to each other in the when he's trying to say, "Jao Mar, ab tu lajawab ho ja bacche."
Yeah.
When he's trying to put me in the spot, I'm still looking with all highest of regards at him. And I say, I kind of say, or sir, aap. I have all that love for him, you know. So, but I don't know that he's planned something for me. He's planned a guldasta for me, and all that I had to return was a rose to him. So that was a beautiful humor extracted from the most serious scene, rather, I would say. So
Yeah.
yes, that was my probably working synergies with him.
But I think it's the melting pot as well. I mean, beautifully. Thank you for saying that. And yeah, exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that you're not a circuit. Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
it's not, I mean, first of all, the tone itself is not like that. And
Yeah.
also, secondly, the dynamic is completely different. Absolutely.
Yes.
Very well said. I'm glad you mentioned that. But I think what's also interesting, and I was just thinking about this whilst you were talking. And it goes back to the style and the chic that Dhar has done, is that, I've often found it very interesting how a lot of like movies kind of are so fascinated with the idea of the cigarette smoking dhua everywhere because that
Yeah.
gives a sense of style and it's a bit of a
Yeah.
hat tip to the
L'ambiance, yes.
yeah, like it gives it a noir feel. But I think that's what's really interesting is how he's adapted noir. He's got your sort of commercial Hindi cinema space, but then you've also got like a texture which almost feels Ram Gopal Verma-esque, if I may say
Yeah.
so, in films like Company, for example, especially when it comes to the dynamics between the gangs and the rivalries. I first found it really fascinating, and this is more of an observation that I'm saying. But I think for you, growing up, because I'm sure you must have also felt the tributes, the cinematic tributes as well. So, what was your appetite, I think, growing up? And how do you think it may or may not have contributed towards this almost this manifestation that you've got for Dhurandhar, in terms of the films that you've grown up watching?
So this is like a dinner table conversation in my family, because they've seen me doing all this jazz, and I've been kind of in awe of him always. I'm talking about Mr. Dutt. So we've been thinking why this and not any other film. We've been thinking why this star cast and not anything else. So there is a lot of reasoning that one does, and you start self-questioning, introspecting, why is this happening, and all of that jazz. But we eventually come down to the fact that manifestation do. I mean, it helps some way. I don't know how it works. I still don't know the process. Because if one knows that this is a thumb of rule, one would just follow it plastically way, and everything will start falling. But there is something which I probably feel energies do collide in this universe. Because man, imagine it's him, it's his song, it's the same world that I used to live. I've been watching it and watching it like how in repeat every day, coming back from school, not even putting my school uniform off, and just switching on the same movie back to back, back to back. You don't know how many times I've seen Sadak. I can't tell you how many
Oh,
times I've seen Sajan. And every time, any good thing happens to him, any sad thing happens to him, I'm equal part of that emotion. And this emotion I got connected to with Uri. I've seen Uri 12 times. I mean, I can't tell you, Anuj, that I was blown away. And any actor would have been, so, if he really understands decent cinema, he would say, यार मुझे ऐसा कुछ करना है यार. मेरी इच्छा है कुछ ऐसा करने की. But it's I really don't know. Maybe this universe collides, man. And you just think on the right lines and things happen to you. What
yeah.
else one can say?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I've often said this as well, but Khalnayak for me is like one of my all-time
Oh
favorite.
yeah,
Like,
bang on.
seriously, like I feel, we often look at Joker and we often look at the anti-hero sentiments that are there in Hindi cinema. But, I feel in on Hollywood as well. But Khalnayak was, that
Oof.
that one scene, if you remember, where he's in the jail and he's like literally,
Yeah,
like he's got a bandage and he's like looking
yeah,
there. I
yes,
I have never been so freaked out from like Balu Balram for me was one of the most iconic villains but heroes that could have been kind of
yeah.
character.
Sorry, I
He,
just wanted to add one more point. And
yeah,
you mentioned very, very nicely, intricately, you mentioned a particular scene. It really bothers me when people say that, you look at his walk, he's a panther walk, his style. I'm sorry, he's got little something. His aura's got more than that.
yeah, yeah.
He's done one of the finest performances. It's not an easy performance to pull off, Chaudhary Aslam. It's a lot of weight on the shoulder. So he's a fabulous actor. Who are we to anyway say it? But I say it with all dignity that yes, he might have an extra element or an extra factor which kind of charms you, allures you. But then at the same time, he is a great actor. He understands cinema very well. He plays with the cameras and he knows his lines and his pauses very well. That's a rich experience at the end of the day, Anuj. It's not a small thing. You've been doing this for years, and now who else can do it better than you? It's like that, no? It's
Yeah.
so yeah.
And and if you think about it, right? Because it's a very intense film, politically charged, and at the same time, it is intense. It's intense, right? Dhurandhar is an intense experience, right?
Yes,
But I see Aslam and Rakesh Vedisa's character, right? They give that sense of catharsis a little bit because they
yes,
have that sense of, comic. There's a bit of comedy that's there because otherwise there's no comedy. There's no way out. It's literally a wormhole otherwise, and it's
yeah,
very, very dark. So
yeah,
there had to be that aspect which kind of keeps the audience, engaged and all of
absolutely,
that. So, I think definitely kudos goes to that. But I think, Dhurandhar actually otherwise, I think what it has spotlighted is the sacrifices of a lot of espionages who have
yeah,
literally sacrificed their own identities, their own lives, faiths even, to really trying to uncover neighboring what terrorists are doing, for example, in other countries. And I think, it really puts a spotlight on people like, for example, I think it's in Mohit Sharma, his name is Ravindra Kaushik ji, all these really uh unsung heroes, right, of India who have really tried to, you know, confront terrorism and
Yeah.
safeguard their own country for that reason. I think, Aditya, from that perspective as well, uh, what impact has the film had in terms of understanding their contributions as well for the country? Because I feel like it's very interesting because when we talk about espionage, I think we're so conditioned into imagining like this very glossy James Bondy kind of feel, right?
Mhm.
But we don't actually realize that there is a lot more intensity, a lot more higher stakes at play, and disastrous, catastrophic consequences that can happen to people if they're
Correct.
caught out, you know?
Yeah. Um, well, I kind of I agree with what you're saying, Anuj. But sometimes I feel, his style of functioning and making cinema has an edge over others because we've seen similar treatments or templates before. The story doesn't have anything extra to add on when we talk about the template per se.
Mm,
I mean, it's a story of a spy who enters the world and he's kind of exploring things. We've seen it. It's
mm,
just how you treat it. It's only the matter of treatment.
yeah.
And yes, it is inspired by a lot of unknown men, and the names that you took are very relevant names. You know, it's the only time when the country has started talking about it and things have started getting exposed.
Mm,
Whenever I go back to my office, I sit with my peers or my colleagues or my friends. It's a matter of conversation today that why did we never speak about them in this style? It's not just a story of valor, it's a story of the reality that the people go through. Jaskirat could be imagination, and obviously it's a cinema, so it needs to have its own graph of emotions and also a sellable quality for the distributors. But it also needs to be done in a way where people feel pride about those people
mm,
who've been part of the most important stories. But that narrative has never been sent out. Or if it has been sent out, it's not sent out in a way that really brings authenticity to the treatment of the film.
mm,
So that has happened with Dhurandhar. Dhurandhar has broken the chains of those threads that we were operating in. यार क्या होता है ना मैं आपको बताऊं इंडिया में ना फिल्म्स के फिल्म बन रहे हैं
जी,
यू मेक अ फिल्म इफ इट्स अ सक्सेसफुल फिल्म देन पीपल विल मेक दोस फिल्म्स चार पांच बार और वो उसको अलग अलग तरीके से करेंगे
correct.
so it's like you have to break it. I heard Mr. Ram Gopal Verma also in one of his interview, and I don't want to misquote him, but what he was trying to say is that uh, Dhurandhar has really, really moved from the main track of that regular Bollywood cinema that we were doing. So
Yeah.
anything less than Dhurandhar now will not be acceptable to the audience because they have a benchmark to look up to.
Mm,
So that benchmark creation, I think that can only happen with intellect. See, okay, I'm sorry, I'm taking little time to answer
no,
this,
no,
but this is
please,
important.
no, no, please, please.
He's the only director, and I insist and I exaggerate on this point. He's the only director, brother, who doesn't consider his audience to be stupid or not qualified to watch his cinema.
Yeah.
The butterfly effect, Lucifer, um, a chapter's names of such high caliber Etuto Brutus. This is not our common names that people of our country would accept. I'm talking about the masses.
Correct. Yes.
But he doesn't consider his audience to be not intelligent.
Mm,
So he's intelligently put in those points because he thinks, no, my audience has evolved. And if it would not be, people would go back to their Google Chromes and probably write those names and check what is this about?
mm,
What is a butterfly effect or what is Etuto Brutus? So it's a perfect mixture of literature, commercial cinema. It's a perfect mix of art and presenting an art in a certain way. An intelligent director can do this, and an intelligent audience can consume this.
absolutely.
There cannot be a third man and a listener between the director and the audience.
Again, so beautifully said. I think what really stays with me, I mean, the performances were so good. I mean, you were fantastic, right? I'm gonna get
Hey,
to a
thanks.
certain scenes in a bit as well. I will. But for me, what really stays to me with me, right, and what really haunts me till this day is the focus on the eyes. I feel like what Aditya does is that I feel like he's interesting because I feel like the color of your eyes kind of resembles Ranveer's eyes in
Yeah,
in as just Kirat Singh Rangi also.
yeah, yeah,
And I remember in the first part, that whole scene about the whole 26/11 ke waqt pe, I was absolutely horrified. It was the most horrifying scene in the history of Indian cinema.
yeah,
And the way
yeah.
the camera just focuses on his eyes,
Eyes.
and then, if you coincide that at the beginning of the revenge, that scene where he's in the door and he's literally seeing the horrors of what's happened to his sister. I honestly, it's the eyes, Chico. They never lie. I feel like he's had the way Aditya Dhar has really focused and played on the eyes. I think that itself is a separate conversation because
Yes.
no, it's just incredible. It really is incredible. But one scene I want to really talk about here, the torture scene. I know you've spoken about as well, that you're literally hitting Ranveer and all of that. That whole sequence has been there, and we will go into that as well. But I want to talk about the scene where you know, where the party wala scene where Alam is exposed as an Indian spy. Okay. Um, First of all, the fact that he's used Hindi songs, classic Hindi songs like Bazigar Mein Bazigar, right, as a way of not just a nostalgic tip, right, but also atmospheric for the party. But then at the same time, this whole idea of shadow play, like even the fact that you've got Tirchi Topi Wale, right, that songs, the choices of songs he's used, right, they're not there for the nostalgic aspect or just oh chalo theek hai nostalgia डाल देते because सब घुस रहे हैं आजकल फिल्मों में, but it's for the idea that they all have this sense of mystery. We don't know
Yeah,
who they are, right? They're coming
yeah,
from the shadows, emerging from the shadows.
yeah.
That sequence was incredible. I would love to know what the breakdown of that sequence was like because it was a very big turning point in that scene. Because here you are, because you had that was when your Shak got solidified in Hum.
Absolutely
So that for me was the real starting point of the revenge in that sense. So
correct.
what was what was it like shooting that sequence and having that music, Ranveer's intensity, your Shak getting stronger again, Sanjay Dutt's eyes, when he's looking at like where he's like Maza aaya, and the way he looks at him,
Yeah.
I can go
So
on.
allow me to break this answer into two parts. I'll
Please.
take you side of this answer is the anecdotal story, what happened on the sets, and second would be the treatment of how the DOP plays with the IA part. So I remember we were shooting 2 o'clock in the night. It was freezing in Amritsar,
Hmm.
and I kind of entered, and this is the first time I entered the cinema where I'm not wearing the uniform.
Huh.
So I entered Datsab to Hamza's house. Hamza's party is happening, and I kind of, as a character, I always had a doubt that something is not falling in place. Something is not looking nice to me, but I don't have courage to go up to SP Saab and tell him that, something is not looking good to me, sir. But while I checked into the party and I am meeting this small portion which is tucked out, which is I enter, we shake hands, and Ranveer gives me a gaze directly to my eyes. But that's not there because obviously they would like to keep it crisp. He gives a gaze to my eyes, and I gaze at his eyes. This is the first kind of encounter that we kind of have together. That listen, I'm with him, and I'm kind of watching. So it's like I'm watching you types. So while that scene was happening, there is a lot that's happening in that scene. Alam is serving juice. Pinda is almost drunk and he's in his own journey of tripping. There's party happening. Bazigar happened, but with the dhol because it's a Punjab style thing happening in Pakistan. So dhol is there. Um, the other boys are waiting there. The Yelena is inside the house making things happen. And then there is a great get together party happening between Mr. Bedi, Datsab is there, Chaudhry Aslam, and they're all looking into each other's eyes. And suddenly, we're shooting it into parts because this is the entire night sequence that we have done. All night we've been shooting it, and half asleep, half awake, because it was chilling badly, and it was all open area that we had. I remember very clearly Ranveer Bhai has shades in that scene. The shade one where he welcomes, he's enjoying. Shade two when he enters and realizes it's Pinda, where he says that घर की याद नहीं आई just see. So that element comes and it just breaks the interval to next level. I mean, I wish Aditya sir would have allowed their audience to at least have popcorn with some kind of peace. But I think that's the price of peace people had to pay. So, and once we are back from the interval, uh, I hear this gunshot and then I enter and I think this is my time. I've got the man. Let me interrogate and get the right person out because if you see, I'm just constantly repeating one line. I'm not
Hmm.
improvising a lot with it. I'm not trying to do too much. I'm just saying, "Bata kaun hai tere saath?"
Hmm.
Because that build-up needs to happen. And it's the story has been told in a way where he just comes and gunshots, and I get shocked कि मेरे हमारे होते हुए we are the officers here. Who else can shoot, and why would one shoot?
Hmm.
So there are so many layering of this, and I clearly remember while I was holding Alam Bhai in a certain way, Gaurav Gera, who's played it beautifully. Uh, I remember Aditya sir said that, Aditya, I want to give you pads for your knees because we've been doing it for very long. And my knees got a little red, uh, constantly sitting in a certain position. And he told me that, an officer will hold it like that. So don't just hold him like this. You will block your hand. What I'm trying to come to is, Anuj, that his detailings are so sharp that he's not just looking at the frame.
Hmm.
He's not just focusing on the performances, but he's intricate in a certain way that he doesn't want to serve anything less.
Yeah.
And while that gunshot happens and Alam dies, he says something very smartly that लाशों को जला दो.
Huh? Oh my God. You know
Yeah.
what? I picked this. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, I want to interrupt you here. Okay,
Yes.
I've seen the
Yes.
film 3 times, and I've seen it with my dad 3 times. Okay, and I said it. I was like, the reason why he said that is because, obviously, of the faith that they come from,
Yeah.
right? So they get the farewell with the faith that they come from. But the way he says it angrily, it feels as if he's trying to tell them to do, to get rid of the bodies, right? But no, it was to do with the. Oh my God! Yes, I got it. I got it. I knew it.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go on,
Yeah.
carry
So
on.
I kind of felt that I every time talk about Aditya Dhar sir, I get goosebumps and I'm very emotional. Sometimes this can be taken in a wrong way. I'm his actor, I'm praising him. No. I have seen magic happening in front of my eyes. How can I deny the magic? And if he is a magical man who's done magic, then I want to give it to him. I mean, we've been just, we are anchors as an actors. We are anchors. Our job is to come, take his lines, deliver it to the audience in a certain way. That's it. I don't want to take any credit more than that. That's it. We are storytellers of somebody else's story, his narrative. And while he said "Lashe Jalado," he exits and he goes back.
Hmm.
And you should have seen his eyes while he exits. I mean, what I've learned from Dhurandhar is how much can you say without saying it is
Hmm.
something that I've learned from this film. And then he goes back directly to the chai wala and he says, "दो चाय रख दो." और वो उस दिन नमक वाली चाय पी जाता है. तो तो यार ये मुझे ऐसा लगता है ये ना मूवी पहले देख चुके होते हैं. And then he writes. I mean, it is very difficult, Anuj, to
Yeah.
screenplay something like this.
No, no. I honestly, we felt it. I think all of us as consumers, as obviously us as reporters, whatever, we felt it. In fact, I would say the phenomenon of Dhurandhar is as such where people have even coined it as a modern day Sholay. Okay.
Yeah,
Like there's been that saying, I've heard that saying, I'm not giving it myself, I've heard it from others, and I'm just saying it. And it is, you know, it's just one of those films where I think going in time, we're gonna look back at it and say, how did this happen? It just happened. It's just magic on screen. And it's just one of those things where someone envisioned it with pure intentions, wanted to make a film, and they made it. And I
yeah,
think that's exactly what it is. But I want to talk about this aspect as well, Aditya. And I'm not gonna delve into this side too much because there's already a lot of noise in it. And I don't want to be another noise that contributes towards it. But obviously there's been a lot of like discussions online about the politics of the film.
yeah,
There have been people who have absolutely abhorred it, but then there's people who have defended it like it's their John. So there's been so many voice. But I think what people don't also realize in that whole political crossfire online is that also it reflects the post-colonial trauma that both the countries have actually faced.
yeah,
What they don't realize is that अंग्रेज चले गए, खुद का बंटवारा हो गया हमारे देश का, but look at what's happened as a result of it. Is
yeah,
our own people from respective countries are forced to take up arms are forced because of bad people influencing their lives, and people don't actually think about the fractured nature
Yeah.
of that, right? And I think it's interesting because Punjab is such a key aspect of Dhurandhar, right? And I think also really kudos to him for really honoring the strength of that land and for really giving credit to such big icons, Satinder Sartaaj Paji,
Yeah.
you've got Diljit Dosanjh sir, you've got Jasmine Sandler, such wonderful, wonderful singers, Afsana Khan also, really, really come into play here. And I think also credits also, I think Yami might be a very big contributing factor here because she's obviously grown up in Punjab, right? She
Yeah.
spent a very, very big amount of time there
Chandigarh, yes.
in Chandigarh. So I'm presuming a lot of that observations must have also come from her too. And when it comes to the terrorism aspect, people forget Aditya Dhar is a Kashmiri Pandit. He has gone through the whole genocide that happened with Kashmiri Pandits. He has seen it from a very close lens. So if anyone who understands what it feels like for your life to be destroyed by terrorism, it is him, and that entire community amongst many, many others who have also suffered. But I think for you as a Punjabi, right, and as someone who comes from that really, really selfless land, which is really about the brave and it really is about sacrifices, and and Sikhs have fought so bravely for the sovereignty of India and for every country in the world, essentially. Um, what did that add, in a way, a sense of not complexity because you're playing a Pakistani officer in this, but did it also make you also, I guess, respect and admire the land and the culture that you come from in many ways as well? I think that's the sort of thing I'd love to address, especially with the whole Punjab aspect, because I really would love to explore that. Yeah.
Yes, we were all one. How beautifully we were living in our lands. We all had our own style of living.
Yeah.
But whatever has happened, that's a political opinion. We all have one. Not necessarily one opinion needs to match another.
Exactly.
So people have opinions about the film. I do respect their opinions.
Yeah.
All years to them. It's a film is made with pure intent. It has nothing to do with anything. We all come from different diversities. I'm sure you have your own belongingness from our country in some way. I come from the land of Jammu. My grandfather is from Jammu. A lot of essence comes from the Punjab side as well. Um, we were all. My dadi ji was Pakistani. She's from Lahore, so I know
Oh,
that we are all connected, and that's how we are all here. But having said that, while you're doing your job, you don't really bring all these things in your mind. But while you're making a movie, while you're drafting a script or a cinema or you're writing it, I'm sure there are a lot that goes in your head while you're putting something. Every director has a narrative to tell, a story to tell. That's his story. You and me can have our own story. I mean, if you have to build your Dhurandhar, if I have to build my Dhurandhar, we would have built in our own ways. He's built in a certain way. Good, bad, ugly, who are we to judge, write, or have opinions on? I
oh,
mean, it's a cinema. Let's watch it like a cinema.
yes.
And I am sure the people who are watching it are very intelligent
Yeah.
and they know what is right and what is wrong. He's presented facts. He's
Yeah.
presented reasoning to the decisions taken by a particular government in power.
Yeah.
The government could have done good things also, bad things also. He's presenting facts. While the movie starts from the first scene, that's the hijack scene in Kandahar. Uh, there was a particular government in power at that time also, which was really, really criticized at that point of time. So that's also part of the film.
Mm,
We could have escaped that. When I say I mean we as a unit. And this is my personal opinion while I answer this question, that his idea was to present something that has happened a lot of time to our country.
mm,
Gandhar, Parliament, 2611. So these all atrocities that has been happening across. Sometimes somebody has to take a chance to stand up and talk about it in a certain way.
mm,
And if not now, then when? If
mm,
not him, then somebody will
mm.
eventually, someday. Uh, it's him who took that kind of a brave shot that I'll do something which is correct.
Yeah.
I'm tired of that narrative that every time I have to talk about a film of Pakistan, I have to talk about the brotherlyhood thing. It doesn't happen like that. If somebody in your family has faced something in Pahalgam attack, in Pulwama or Uri, would you have that kind of thought process still left? that no, we are brothers, so what, we are in different countries. It doesn't happen like that.
Right.
And I think we've come to that stage where we've had a lot of conversation, communications, method talking, everything has happened. And at the end of the day, let's come back to the bottom line and the smaller funnel, that it's a film.
Exactly.
Watch it like a film.
It's a piece of
Watch it
art.
like yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a film, and I'm sure there are more cinemas like these which have been released before, but they carry a certain type of meaning to its own thing. This is a very objectified film here,
Yeah.
and yes, there are part of scenes where notebandi thing happened, though demonetization was discussed. All of that has happened, but the events were all connected.
Mm.
So if tomorrow he wants to elaborate this story in part three, which I'm not sure whether he has it in his mind or no, I'm not sure. But if tomorrow he wants to tell the story, he will bring it with something important and something really nice. That's all I can say, Anuj. I mean, because the more you get deeper into this conversation, there are layers to it, and every conversation has a counter. Then we can talk about it. It
Yeah, no,
never
and this is
ends.
why I've not really delved into the politics because I feel like yeah, it's made from a certain lens, but then I feel like that's the purpose of art, right? Like
Yeah,
it's I've grown up watching films which might not be of my ideology, but I love it for the art that it is, and you can
absolutely.
and you can also see reasoning with that, and I think that's where I think it's important, and I can understand why people might have a certain opinion about it for
Yeah.
against. You can understand it, right, from a
Yes.
human lens. So I think like what you said is so spot on. Right. Penultimate question before I go to my final question. We got to talk about the post-climax scene, and the whole scene where you're hitting Ranveer Singh. Um, Bichara, matlab, how could you incidentally? How could you, Aditya? Not nice. Okay, so
One more. Thanks for adding one more to me.
so that entire sequence, right? Like Khoon se latpat tha wo, okay?
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, great makeup. I mean, brilliant. And the lighting in that sequence, my goodness, it was
Oh, lovely.
dim. It was dim. It felt very grisly. It felt very dark. It felt like, again, out of the shadows. The whole
Yeah.
idea of out of the shadows coming was literally that scene there. And when he's literally hanging there, you could see the cuts and everything. And
Yeah.
I think what I want to look is beyond the violence and the gore, okay? Is for
Yeah.
you as an actor, right? Because there is a lot of aggression and you can feel the aggression that was building up in you throughout the film quite literally comes out in this movie, in this part of the film. So I think for you, when doing that whole sequence, they must have had like as serious as it was for us as audiences. Why do I feel like it wasn't as serious for you guys while shooting it? Why do I feel like there was a sense of like awkward laughter and nervous laughter between you guys as actors while shooting this? And
It's a whole together a new chapter, Anuj. That night, that sequence was a new chapter. Uh I want to. I'll quickly wrap this answer. Um, I started this scene with a lot of fear because the character demands a lot of aggression and you know a command is there in his head. He's gone all out.
yeah,
Omar Haider has gone all out. I, on the contrary, is facing inner challenges of hitting him because I'm hitting him hard. And this is a real hit. And the stick in hand is fabricated, obviously, with those foams and all, but there are metals on it and things on it. But, anyways, the direct touch on the skin bothers the body. And, so initial hits were absolutely a miss. And Adi sir kind of just asked me to slow down. And he said, dude, listen, either you hit him or you don't. There's no impact with what you're doing. Then Ranveer Bhai called me and he explained me beautifully. He said that, Aditya, I train myself in the gym for like 20, 25 minutes every day. So you go all out. You hit me. I'll tell you where to hold me, how to hold my beard, where to hit me. And then you just go all out and don't worry about it. See, he's the leading man of the industry. He's the man who's running the show. I don't want to hit him. And a small little nuance or a mistake can really cause a big trouble. We've all seen through in the past how
yeah,
things can really change. So, you think a lot and as an actor. So I had to stop thinking. There was no other way to perform that scene for me. While I say you have to stop thinking, is you have to stop overthinking and follow the technical instructions properly and your camera and the lights and then handling the subject properly where you're supposed to hit him. And then I went all out. And then, while doing that scene, there were just two lines where I say that, तूने आलम को तो आसानी से मौत दे दी, पर
Yeah.
तुझे मैं इतनी आसानी से नहीं मरने दूंगा हमजा.
Mm,
So while I was doing that lines, I told sir, I said, sir, there is more that's coming in from me inside. There's something which I feel needs to be omitted. Otherwise I won't be able to complete my thing. It's like I'm not able to justice to those two lines.
yeah.
He said, show me what you feel like doing. I mean, let's do one take. And then I start hitting him and I say, तूने उसको मौत दे दी, मैं तुझे मरने नहीं दूंगा, तेरी तो बता तेरे साथ कौन है, कौन. And then I start using some curse words to him. And suddenly, it's like Adi sir is like watching me through monitor and he's like, yeah, he's gone all out. And then there is a rod that I rotate with his
Mm,
hand, which is very, very, and parallelly the conversation of Sanyalji is happening. So
yeah.
while I was doing that scene for audience, that trigger of Hamza being hit is happening. At the same time, the winning of Sanyal's conversation is happening. So again, that psychological playing with the audience mind is parallelly running in the head.
Mm,
And while I was performing it, I kind of in the latter I decided that I'll go for a full hit. I mean, there is no other way. I'll
mm,
have to do it properly. Otherwise, the impact of that scene is not coming well because the camera is behind me
huh,
and one shot is in the from the front. So I wanted to go full throttle and full out, and then Ranveer Bhai kind of really supported. He's awesome. Like one actor who would really stand by to make your scene happen.
yeah.
Very less actors you will see who will be there to make sure that the impact of your scene comes out well. So
Huh.
kudos to that man.
He is incredible. Honestly, I love him. But look, I think on a final note, very quickly before we go, because it's
Yes.
been quite a while, and thank you so
You
much.
know what? Your chat grows up. I generally do a very quick conversation, but your chat really grows up to something else. Yes.
Thank you. Again, this was peak Aditya Dhar detail.
Yes.
But look, I think on a final note now, look, I mean, Dhurandhar has been quite the Dhurandhar at the box office. I mean, I think I think throughout the course of the conversation, we've literally quite, acknowledged and, appreciated that the fact that it's literally defined a big cultural moment
Hmm.
in cinema currently. Going forward now, I think with the work that you do, I think number one, what sort of characters are you aspiring to do now? What sort of work that you think will really satisfy that artist within you? And secondly, how also important is it, like how you mentioned the whole copy paste template that happens in Indian cinema, that you also don't end up getting caught up doing an Omar 2.0 or another version of
Yeah.
that character going forward as well?
Yes. Interesting, and at the same time, very scary answer here because it's an actor wants work.
Yeah,
And I'm glad that I was part of one of the biggest franchise and project and a film called Dhurandhar.
yeah,
But Dhurandhar will not happen to you very often.
true.
It's one of the lifetime project. You got to be open to do good characters, surprise your audience, pick up something that's interesting, fascinating for yourself and for your audience as well. Nobody wants to see you keep doing the same thing again and again. But sometimes you got to just keep working because see, you have to work to polish the craft as well.
Right.
And coming back to the question of what you're looking at, I'm mostly interested in doing gray shades, more of crime and thriller and such kind of a cinema. I resonate a lot with the real time cinema, which is like you know, something on the true events that happen. And that's what I aim at. But I would love to explore sometimes as actors, we don't know our potential or, we don't know what kind of things that can really lead us to do good things. So I kind of, what we can do is we can audition for great characters,
Yeah.
and if the directors permit you to play it in a certain way and they can get something out of you which is a newness, I think that breaks the boredom and the monotony of working as an actor. So looking forward to do something which is more interesting.
Wow. Well, look, I think there's so much that I think I'm very curious to see. You're still coming out of the shadows because I feel like even though we've seen you play Omar in Durandar the Revenge, I feel like there's a lot of uh facets to you as an actor which we're still waiting to see unravel on screen. So I'm very much excited for that, Aditya. Thank you so much. Honestly, this was आई फील लाइक जो तलब थी मेरी ना धुरंधर के बारे में बात करने की वो
Yeah.
उभर के आ गई सो अपॉलजीज फॉर द लेंथ ऑफ दिस
I just wish I could add little value to your conversation because obviously we all This is one subject that we can just keep chatting, and then time is the only problem here.
Time is the dude. I'm telling you, I'm still not done. Like I feel like I have a lot more to ask, which hopefully in the coming days, God willing, and if
We'll
opportunity,
catch up again.
love to. Yes,
We'll catch up then.
absolutely.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Aditya. Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
Anuj.
coming
Thank you.
here.
Lovely talking to you. Lots of
Thank,
love to you. Lots of love to your family. And a lot of love to Filme Shilmy and all the audience who've been watching us here. Please give your love and support to the channel. Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much.